morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials are often taken as a lens to view the whole Puritan period in New England to serve as an example of religious prejudice, social persecution, and superstition. Benjamin Ray stated this in the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials have many credentials because it has been examined, interpreted by historians, and there are multiple documents to back up its history. I will be showing you this today. During this speech, I will be informing you on Puritan beliefs in the havoc in Massachusetts during 1692 to 1693, why so many were killed during the Salem witch trials, the Salem witch trials themselves, and why it is so hard to study. The Puritans' beliefs proved theocracy is majorly flawed, and tension was brought upon those who practiced it. Basically, the events are hard to place, but shaped America's history and won't be forgotten. The Puritans were Christians, and they believed that Satan lurked everywhere. They believed that Satan lurked in the wilderness, and Native Americans at the time. They had other colonies who they were rivaling with. They also believed other activities like dancing and music were totally horrible. So basically anything that brought joy was classified as evil. They also believed women were evil. Because Eden had brought sin into the world, women were seen as not so great. Women had little rights in Salem at the time, according to the Salem witch trials 1962 to 93. Witchcraft was quite a big sin. So the consequences of practicing witchcraft were often pretty bad. The Puritan view of witchcraft was very different from our modern one. Witchcraft in 1962 had little to do with crystals and herbs and everything to do with the devil. Satan was a real presence in daily life, lurking at the rough edges of temptation, hungry to test the faithful and entice people away from God. This is a quote from Alexandria Passy from My Ancestor Was a Salem Witch. Puritans believed in theocracy, which didn't settle well. This is why tensions with neighbors were so high, and the same with communities nearby. Through isolation, paranoia, repression, all this combined created what we call hysteria, which I will also be giving you more insight on later. Due to exaggerated laws and women's rights being minimal, the Puritans created a community with a shaky foundation, destroying many lives during the Salem witch trials. How did the Salem witch trials begin? It is believed that a slave named Tituba entertained two girls. The girls, for some reason, went hysterical afterwards, and their father called the doctor. The doctor, not knowing much about other mental behaviors, just prescribed them with some random antidotes and then said that they were bewitched. So to be bewitched, a witch would have to bewitch you. Now, the father, being Samuel Parris, and the Puritan minister, took this pretty seriously. According to the Salem witch trials, a study of mass hysteria, the devil in Massachusetts, a modern inquiry into the Salem witch trials by Esther Forbes, Betty Parris and Abigail Williams had been screaming, kicking, thrashing whenever Tituba was nearby. So they all looked to Tituba. Other women who were poor or considered outcasts, like Sarah Good, who was a beggar, and Sarah Osborne, who was a sporadic churchgoer, were also claimed to be witches. Puritans believed in confessing to your sins, so if you confess to your sins, God would decide your fate. If you were a witch and you confessed, you would be able to live, not be hanged, because the Puritan belief was that God would make your own punishment. If you were lying, on the other hand, you basically were going to die. The reason for this was because The Puritans basically believed that if you wouldn't let God decide your fate, they were going to decide your fate, which didn't have much of a great execution to it. The act of two young girls ended up causing major havoc in Salem village and created one of America's most corrupt trials. Okay, the trials themselves. It was hard to be accused because if you were not a witch and you said I was not a witch and you don't want to give up names, you were going to die, basically. If you were not a witch but you claimed to be a witch and you gave other witches names, they would let you live. This is how the hysteria started. One person would share other names, and then the next person would share other names. And before you knew it, there's over 200 accused, 150 faced trial, 5 died in prison, and 19 were hung during the Salem witch trials. The governor ended the trials in October. The Puritans also believed that witches did not deserve proper burial. Maria Lisa said, some histories record that bodies were thrust in a shallow grave in a crevice on Gallows Hill. This is a quote from Salem Remembers 300 years later. So many mysteries circulate around the Salem witch trials. Where were the bodies, but also, where are the records? No official records of the Salem witch trials are official today. They have either been lost or deliberately destroyed. Few legitimate documents exist now, and it's difficult to share the story because of the lack of documentation. The official record book went missing and has only been recovered in 1996 at the Suffolk County Courthouse. So events and timelines often change due to new info, difference in opinion, and the chronological order tends to be incorrect in certain documents. This is a quote by Margot Burns and Bernard Rosenthal, Examination of the Records of the Salem Witch Trials. Historians are forced to work with poor documentation. Spelling errors, cases spoken too quickly, and abbreviated words were ways that the documentation is very tough to read, especially during the time because education was very minimal. The cases are based off of pre-trial records, depositions, arrest warrants, indictments, and other documentations like diaries. Overall, the story of the Salem witch trials is a tough one to interpret due to many theories and lacking info. Overall, the Puritans proved theocracy is majorly flawed due to tensions brought upon those who practice it. The hysteria brought upon affected 24 deaths, and hundreds other lives were also affected. The events are hard to place, but shaped America's history and won't be forgotten. If you ever hear of the Salem witch trials, you now understand the history and impact as historians try to piece together the events of the Salem witch trials. Here are my works cited. I am Ellie Brown, and thank you for listening to my speech.